Assalamu alaikum. Today we'll be covering ethics. So, ethics and ownership. This belongs to probably the last chapter you see on all texts for AS level. So, this is ethics and ownership, right? So, first of all, we'll be going over the background as I have highlighted right here, right? So, we'll be going over the background. So, first of all, there are some definitions that I have highlighted over here which are important when we consider an ethical behavior, right? So these are really important. So first of all, there's legal covers the law, whether or not an action is punishable by law or not, right? Morality concerns questions of right and wrong and is more often thought of in relation to personal or individual choices. So it's not restrained by law, but it's more so restrained by personal or individual choices that one might have, right? Ethics also concerns questions of right and wrong, but is more often used in a professional context, so a workplace environment or something along those lines, right? Then we have culture. Culture refers to the attitudes, values, and practices shared by a society or a group of people, right? So this belongs in a society where you live, right? So how the society may indulge in various activities, if they might find something okay for this society or not, right? So that's where society and culture comes in, right? And then anything which breaks the law is termed illegal. That's a very general concept, right? And then examples of this include copying software and then selling it without the permission of the copyright holders. Morality is the human desire to distinguish between right and wrong. What you desire is right or what you think is wrong. This varies from person to person. So this is specific to person. And between cultures, something that is considered immoral in one culture may be acceptable in another culture, right? So that's where this difference comes in, right? Creating a fake news website, for example, is not illegal, but may be considered immoral if it causes distress to others, right? If the creator tried to obtain personal and financial data, then it becomes illegal. First of all, it was immoral only because you were distributing fake information. But if you're trying to get personal and financial data of someone in order to use it for yourself, then it becomes illegal. In this case, we'll be discussing hacking as well. So, hacking is generally regarded as immoral but not illegal. However, it becomes illegal if it compromises national security, so national security, or results in financial gain or reveals someone's personal information. For example, in short, there is a fine line between an immoral or an illegal act. So there's a distinguishable reason whether something's immoral or illegal, right? Unethical behavior, on the other hand, is the breaking of code of conduct. So there's code of conduct, there's rules. So if you do not follow those, then you are going into unethical behavior side, right? For example, if somebody works for a software company and passes on some ideas to the rival company, this would be regarded as unethical behavior because you're probably releasing some company's success story or some company's successful product to someone else, right? So the importance of culture is less tangible. When writing computer games, for example, programmers need to be careful that they do not include items which some cultures would find offensive or obscene. Again, this might not be unethical or illegal, but could cause distress. And another example that I'd like to tell you is there's this new show that is called Record of Ragnarok. So it features a Hindu god, right? So because of that, the show got banned in India. Even though the show is not illegal, but it causes distress to the Indian population, to the Hindu population specifically. So that is why it causes distress. So it wasn't unethical or illegal, but it became illegal. It got banned in India. So that's an example you could think of. So that was something I knew of. So now we move on to computer ethics. So computer ethics is a set of principles set out to regulate the use of computers. Three factors are considered here, right? Intellectual property rights, for example, copying of software without the permission of the owner, privacy issues, for example, hacking or any illegal access to another person's personal data. So you need to be careful because someone's personal data is his own, right? You do not have access to it unless the other person gives you trust, right? You cannot just figure it out from somewhere and then try to use it for your own self, right? And the effect of computers on society, for example, job losses, social impacts, and so on, right? So another problem that we have is that the use of internet has led to plagiarism, right? And plagiarism is basically taking someone else's idea and then portraying it as your own, right? So you can quote someone's idea, right? And it is essential that some acknowledgement is made so that the originator of the idea or the work has to be shown to others, right? So how do you do that, right? So take for example, I wrote a research paper, right? So a research paper, and this research paper consisted of various things that other researchers have come out to with their own specific research. So of course, when I'm going to be using their specific data, right, in my specific document, so my research paper should contain references. So these references will be providing credit to the people who actually did this research, and then my research paper would be my own conclusion to their research and some research that I have done myself, right? So this is how you can use other person's data and then you provide them with their reference, right? Because in reality they worked on it as well, right? So they have the credit due to themselves as well. Now we'll go over professional ethical bodies, right? So professional ethical bodies, there are tons of them, right? So there's the British Computer Society. There's the British Computer Society is a professional body up in the UK. This is initially to represent the rights and ethical practices of all professionals working in the IT and computing industries, so specifically to IT and computing industries. But now it is an international body which works in close partnership with other groups to monitor and advise IT practices across the globe, right? So what areas does this cover, right? It covers the public interest, professional competence and integrity, duty to relevant authority and duty to the profession, right? Now we'll be going over the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, right? So this was set up in the US, right? This was specifically set up in the US, and this was set up with the aims of raising awareness of ethical issues, promoting ethical behavior among professionals working in the electronics industry, and lastly, it was ensuring engineers and scientists the respect for the need of ethical behavior to help in this aim, right? And now there's this code of ethics which is specifically important when we are dealing with the our past paper questions, right? Because you need to be aware of some of these code of ethics, right? You might get to specifically write them out in your paper, right? So you need to be aware of them. So these are the 10 statements there are: to hold paramount the safety, health and welfare of the public, to strive to comply with ethical design and sustainable development practices, and to disclose promptly factors that might endanger to the public or the environment. So this is basically saying you need to work with safety, health and welfare of the public, right? All your designs should be sustainable, they should be ethical, and that they should never danger the public, right? The other one is number 2 is to avoid real or perceived conflicts of interest wherever possible, and to disclose them to affected parties when they exist. So whenever you have conflict, whenever there's a patent issue, you need to solve it out rather than creating a big unwanted case over it and take it for a while and then not have a product at all, right? That's going to put both the companies in loss. So rather than having that, they should have a patent agreement that whoever did it first has the rights, right? To be honest and realistic in stating claims or estimates based on available data. So take for example, you work in a firm and you get someone who wants to make you a program which might not be overall that well, right? So he's going to ask you if it's worth it or not. So rather than focusing on getting money out of that person, you need to tell him how that program is going to work, how much cost it is, how much beneficial it would be. So that is important in its own sense, right? So that is kind of an estimate you give the other person based on your own experience, based on available data, based on available market products, right? Fourth is to reject bribery in all forms. I'm sure you understand this by yourself. To improve the understanding by individuals and society of the capabilities and the social implications of conventional and emerging technologies, including intelligent systems. So basically, this is by telling that everyone should be aware of the new technologies that are coming, right? And what kind of capabilities these things hold, right? Because AI and robotics is thought of very harmful, that robots are going to take over the world and all that. But people do not realize that artificial intelligence is not just robotics, it's spread out. If you go over to my artificial intelligence videos, artificial intelligence is almost present in every other computer related field now, right? Number 6 is to maintain and improve our technical competence and to undertake technological tasks for others only if qualified by training or experience or after this full disclosure of pertinent limitations. So this is basically taking some kind of job if you have the competence, right? If you're skilled enough, right? You cannot just move into a big project when you don't even have programming skills. That's not how it works, right? Number 7 is to seek, accept, and offer honest criticism of technical work, to acknowledge and correct errors, and to credit properly the contributions of others. So this is basically how you need to deal with other people's work, right? Number 8 is to treat fairly all persons and to not engage in acts of discrimination. So this is basically discrimination based on race, religion, gender, disability, age, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. So this is basically not discriminating, not being sexist, not being racist in any kind of way, right? So you deal with them the way you would deal with any other person, right? To avoid injuring others, their property, reputation, or employment by false or malicious actions. If you don't like a person, you can't just make up facts about, you can't just make up stuff about them just to try to harm them, to danger them, right? And lastly, to assist colleagues and co-workers in their professional development and to support them in following this code of ethics, because this code of ethics is really important, right? Because you need to tell everyone how the system is governed, how we work with the system, and how everyone else should work with the system, right? Now we move on to software engineering code of ethics. These are specifically very important in terms of your CAIE examination because these are frequently asked. So we'll be going over, there are 8 of them. You There are multiple subclasses for each of them. You do not need to be aware of those subclasses as such. You just need to be aware of these 8 specific ones. Public. So software engineers shall act consistently with the public interest, right? So you need to be aware about how public works, right? Public interest is basically how publics are going to receive your product, right? And how you should work with them, just not your employer or your client, right? Now second is client and employer, right? Software engineers shall act in a manner that is in the best interest of their client and employer, consistent with public interest. So public interest is really important because you cannot have a client basically taking monopoly over everyone else, right? You cannot just do that, right? You need to be aware of the public. You cannot develop an app that would be bad to the public if your client desires it, right? So here we go with the 2 of them. Number 3 is product. Software engineers shall ensure that their products and related modifications to those products meet the highest professional standards possible. So you need to basically do your best in any kind of work you have, right? Any kind of product you're creating, any kind of updates you're making, you need to do it to the best degree. You can't just do slacked off work, right? The other guy, your client, is basically paying you full amount, not because you will do half-assed work, but because you need to provide him with the work that you promise him, that you came into this field with passion and you need to prove it, right? Now you move on to judgment, right? Software engineers shall maintain integrity and independence in their professional judgment, right? You need to be professional, right? Whenever you're providing anyone with professional judgment, be in, maintain integrity and independence. You cannot be biased, right? Management. Software engineers, managers and leaders shall subscribe and promote an ethical approach, right? Ethical approach to the management of software development and maintenance, because you cannot do unethical work and then sell it out, right? That's not how it works. That's not how any kind of field works, right? You need to always follow an ethical approach. Profession. Software engineers shall advance the integrity and reputation of profession consistent with the public interest. You need to be honest to yourself, honest to your profession, and then advance in it, right? Colleagues. Software engineers shall be fair and fair to and supportive of their colleagues, right? You need to provide them an honest criticism. You need to work with them. You cannot put them down just for your own gain, right? You together work to for the betterment of the society and the company, right? You not just put the other guy down just because you wanted a promotion. That's not how it works, right? And lastly, it's self, right? Software engineers shall participate in lifelong learning regarding the practice of their profession and shall promote an ethical approach to the practice of their profession, right? You cannot just tell anyone, copy this code off and I'll give you marks, I'll give you credit. That's not how it works. People share their code for the help of others, right? They design something, you can take inspiration of from that and create your own product. More so, rather than just having copied someone else's product. That's not good to your own self. That's not good to the other person who brought their product out. So this is basically an introduction to ethics, ethical bodies, and how specific codes of ethics from different bodies is there in our AS level syllabus. Thank you so much for watching.